Hey everybody, it is Friday, May 22nd, 2026. It is, as we do this third attempt here, 1:09 p.m. Pacific Time. It is 87 degrees outside under sunny skies, very warm. And I hope you guys have a safe Memorial Day weekend because yes, today is the beginning, believe it or not, of said Memorial Day weekend. So I hope you have a safe and fun one. But with that said, let's get into the 154th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential. And we're going to hit you with a 2-for-1 here. That's right. Now, you might have noticed as of late, I've been kind of giving my thoughts on, One Piece and everything. And mostly, the more recent videos, I should say, were about the historically comedic, if not very sneaky underground, if you will, situation that Toei Animation put four kids, if you will, through back in 2020, back in the mid 2000, basically 2000, I think 2004, something like, oh, actually 2004 or something like that, if you will. And mainly, long story about that. I've done a video on it, but short story about that is essentially four kids wanted two animes from Toei, which was Magical Do Re Mi and Ultimate Muscle. But Toei wanted to be sneaky, saw how much of a mega hit One Piece was becoming in Japan, and decided, you know what, we want to conquer the Western states. Let's send it over there, and that's basically how that disaster came to be, because basically Toei Animation had no idea that, like all the other animes that they may have submitted over here to be, English dubbed and pretty much edited down to be a little kid friendly, they had no idea that One Piece would go through probably the most massive of editorial changes and everything, because One Piece is not meant for Saturday mornings. We'll put it that way. It's not meant for Saturday mornings. Um, but anyway, two characters were prominent, with One Piece during that time frame. Even then, and even up to now, as we're entering the final saga, if you will, for the series, for the OG series, manga and anime, and that, of course, is Nami and Robin. Nami, of course, was part of the crew almost from the get-go, if you will. She was kind of like part of the crew from the get-go. Um, and she's kind of like, I guess you could say, the BFF, if you will, of Luffy, Luffy, if you will. She's kind of his BFF, kind of like she's the Taya to his Yugi, if you will. But just like with Taya and Yugi, obviously people can see that there's something more between them, no matter what the situation. Whether they get on each other's nerves, they tease each other. Nami has to put him in his place, if you will, just to teach him a lesson and all that. They're still, at the end of the day, very trustworthy of each other, very, very friendly towards each other, and some would say very loving towards each other and everything. I mean, if you look at one of the more recent arcs over the years, anime and manga, when Nami sees Luffy for the first time in, like, I don't know how long, maybe a couple of weeks, months, whatever, days, she embraces him like it's nobody's business, like she does not want to let him go, if you know what I mean. Anyway, they have a great dynamic. And then you have Robin, who basically was like part of this live chat. Live chat, let me know if I'm wrong or not. And super chats are open as well during this, just to let you guys know. The super chats are open during this, just to let you guys know. But live chat, let me know, in the live chat, in the comments if I'm wrong. Robin, on the other hand, used to be part of this group, kind of like assassins and all that, but there came a pivotal point because she has such a unique backstory. She has such a unique backstory, Robin, to the point that she allowed herself to be put into, be put into this group of, I guess you could say, assassins or something like that, piratey assassins, and basically what happened is there came a very pivotal point when she crossed paths with Luffy and his crew, even snuck aboard onto the ship and all that. And like I said, there came a time where she was given a choice: do you want to live or do you want to die? Do you want to die, where you are at, or do you want to, have a new, a new purpose in life? You want to live. You want to, be with us and have, have an adventure. Be, be with a, a family, that watches, that trusts and watches out for each other and everything. And she has this pivotal moment where she's looking at them as they're getting ready to sail away, and her eyes are just tearing up, swelling up, and she says, "I want," and she's screaming out, "I want to live." She wants to live. At first she's saying, "I want to die," but then she's realizing, you know what, she doesn't want to die, and she's like, "I want to live," and she's able to join them up as part of the crew. So, that's how, she basically became part of, part of the Straw Hat crew. And again, in the live chat, let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm missing anything, as well as in the comments, let me know as well. But what's interesting about it too is that, Nami at first is not too trustworthy of her, but she wins her over almost instantly because Nami is basically not only a treasure hunter, as well as like Luffy's most trusted navigator, and like I said, is one of his BFFs. But Nami is a cat burglar as well, according to some people, because Robin knows exactly how to win her over. Because, like I said, Nami is not trustworthy of her at first, but there is a clip going around on social media and as well as here on YouTube. Well, all she has to do, Robin, to get Nami onto her side, is just pull out a bag of, I think, what is it, crocodile jewelry or something like that, and just like that, Nami's won over. Nami's won over and everything. So yeah, they kind of have a have a unique dynamic, and always just are willing to be there for each other. I mean, even when Robin goes through hell, and so does Nami, it's like Nami is just like there's like one moment or a few moments in the anime, and I think it's pre-time skip or something like that. And she's just happy to see Robin just, safe, even though scarred up and everything. She's just happy to see her and all that, and vice versa. It's one of those unique dynamics to where they're kind of like sisters, but of course, certain fan works kind of portray them as more, if you know what I mean. But anyway, they're like, they're kind of like sisters, BFFs, if you will, or BGF, best girlfriends, if you will. They're kind of like that now. So the dynamic is, like I said, really interesting in everything within the series. And like I said, all it took for Nami to be won over initially was for Robin to present that bag. But Robin, is a unique character because, like I said, she has that moment and everything. She, in fact, has an emotional moment coming up real soon. If you read the manga, you already know what that is. But the anime is going to be adapting it, I think, as soon as this week, where she's going to be reuniting with this, I think, this character called Samuel, this big character, giant character, and everything. She's going to be reuniting with him, and to kind of get herself ready for this, she has the skeleton guy. I think his name is Brooks or something like that, Brooke or Brock or whatever. And she has him basically give her a perm, cut her hair, kind of restyle it back to what it was pre-time skip. Because what's interesting about the designs is in the pre-time skip, you kind of see them with like different hairstyles and everything, and in the post-time skip, it's changed up a lot. Robin is like a big example of the time skip really changing somebody's look and everything, because what happens is that it's told that she was part of a revolutionary army or something like that, helping them out. And then I think Nami was part of something as well. She was training. Anyway, when we see Robin in the post-time skip, her hair is slicked back, her eyes are a little designed differently. And from what I understand, in live chat, correct me if I'm wrong, live chat, comments, let me know if I'm wrong. From what I'm understanding, from a behind-the-scenes perspective, Oda, because the manga is black and white, all mangas, I think back then, and even today, some still are, is black and white, right? So you don't know exactly what a character looks like unless they decide, hey, we're going to colorize the manga for like special edition re-releases. So nobody knew what she looked like skin-wise. And so the animators at first decided to give her more of a tan look. Now, some fans have chalked it up with their own perception, and again, live chat, correct me if I'm wrong, with her own perception that the reason she had dark tan skin is because she was in the desert as part of this part of her original assassin's crew or whatever it was, right? She was part of that, and that the reason she had light skin when we saw her in the post time skip was because she was part of the Revolutionary Army, or at least training under them, and she was able to lose that tanness, because of the cold and everything they were in. You know, Now I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not. Again, live chat, comment section, let me know. But it's kind of unique that you go and see her in one design, and then you see her in another design, and not even like a couple. If you're looking at it from a seasonal perspective, not even a season or two apart. Time skip wise, it makes sense, but season or two apart, it's like, whoa, this is kind of different and everything. Like, this can't be her, but yet it is. And that's the one thing about anime and any kind of animation across the board. If a series does really well and it gets greenlit for another couple of seasons, of course they're going to make sure that certain characters have a kind of slightly different look to them, if you will, an alter look, if you will, to them that makes it more up to date, more modern, I guess you could say, more realistic. Um, I go back to this many times. A good example is when you look at Sonic Satayam season two, and you see the characters all have different looks. Like the designs are completely different, if you will. You know it's still them, but it's like, why are they changed up to look this way? And one could assume that they did it to kind of age him up a little bit. It's a year later or something, so that might be the answer. And some felt like, well, they don't look, realistic enough, or they don't look, very human morphic, if you will, enough. So let's do this and that. I mean, you look at Rotor in season two, you look at Antoine in season two, and you kind of get the idea. The only character that retained who she was until at least around part one of Blast of the Past was Bunny, because they didn't, give her the colored pupil eyes like they gave Sally. Instead Bunny still had a big green eyes, and it wasn't until at least, like I said, part one of Blast of the Past that we saw that change, if you know what I mean. And some could, chalk it up to the fact that she temporarily had her memory erased and all that, and then her eyes doing those swirly colors is what caused it. You could chalk it up to that if you will, but still, the design, the finalized pupil design for her wasn't, really put into place until about part one, like I said, a Blast of the Past. And then you look at Sally, and not only did she have the black pupil designs as well, but she also got the vest, which was another significant change as well. So these kind of things have always happened. They've always happened in anime and in animation. And having, Robin, change and have her look completely, redesigned to kind of, I guess, match up to what Oda had originally, designed her to look like or be like in the manga was anime wise, was like a huge like surprise to, I'm assuming, to a lot of folks. Again, live chat comments, let me know if I'm correct or not. But obviously, had to be a huge surprise to a lot of folks. Um, Another good example that relates to that is another girl I talked about here on the Animated Girls Profile Confidential at the, when I was starting this series, Cindy Bear. Cindy Bear initially in the Yogi Bear show was kind of like blue, kind of like a turquoise blue-like color and all that. For a while, she wore a bonnet and and everything. Had a parasail, had like a little neck dress, if you will. But then when we got to the movie, she was just basically given a completely different overhaul of a look. The neck dress was gone. Replaced with a ascot, if you will, yellow ascot. The bonnet, it came back a couple of times in several series she'd be in. Like I think it came back in Laugh Olympics during her participation in the bullfighting contest, if you will, and all that. So we saw her come back there, but it was mostly, outside of that, mostly gone and everything. She had a blue dress and everything. She had a flower in her hair, so she looked more, more in tune to what Yogi and Boo Boo looked like. as a bear, with her bear design and all that. So that was a huge change right off the bat. If you saw that movie in theaters, knowing she was going to be in it, or you saw the promotional posters for it back then, and you're like, wait a minute, this is the same Cindy Bear as what we saw in the show? What the heck? Of course, it comes off as a big surprise. It's like a big significant change because you become so accustomed to that. And like I said, you can only imagine, how the fans of One Piece felt with Robin and her sun design in the anime, as well as maybe even the manga, if you will, when it came to the post-time skip. But again, what's interesting about Nami and Robin basically is not just they had significant updates to the looks. Nami of course had hers as well, but basically, like I said, not only are they looked at as best friends, they're also looked at as not just sisters, but like motherly big sister figures to other characters. For example, with Robin and Nami, Chopper looked at Robin. Some people perceive it this way. Chopper looked at Robin like a motherly figure. Some others say he looks at her as like a big sister figure, and while others also say he probably looks at her as more of a, you know what I mean, kind of figure. But yeah, she's very, very protective of Chopper, and now she's also become very protective in the more recent arcs of Bonnie and everything, who Bonnie basically looks at as a big sister. And I know people look at Bonnie and be like, "How is this Bonnie? That don't make sense." Here's the thing about the devil fruits in this show: the devil fruits give their user unique abilities. For Bonnie, it allows her to be aged up to a grown adult. In other words, she goes from basically, I'm assuming 10, 8, 9, 10 years old, 8 years old to whoop, right up to the 18-year-old range. And it's like, holy crap, what in the world? It's like you can't believe what you're seeing. You can't believe what you're seeing. But she's also able to adapt into the new Nico power that she has, the same as Luffy has. Basically, when they become essentially gods and goddesses of very Tex Avery, Looney Tune like powers. Basically, very cartoony, lunatic. Basically very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very exaggerated, wild take Tex Avery like expressions and all that. The arms stretch long. They just blow up to proportions that are huge. Eyes bulge out and everything, stuff like that. And that's what Bonnie can. Part of her powers is. She can tap into that. At least now she can. But also, like I said, the devil fruit. For her, it allows her to age up from like let's say 10, from like 8 or 10 to basically about 18 to 20, if you will. Think think that old school anime Marvelous Memlo, if you will, where the young girl had to take one pill and then another in a different order to age up to an adult. And well, there you go. There you go. Um, anyway, basically, like I said, Robin becomes like a big sister to her, a motherly, sisterly, probably more so in people's eyes at times, to Chopper. And Nami is kind of very similar. Nami is like a big sister to Chopper, and kind of a big sister to Bonnie, but mostly to Chopper and everything. They have this unique dynamic and all that. And she's kind of like the big sister, or kind of like the sistery figure of the group as well. Not just to Chopper, like like I said, she's like the big sister to him. You know, but she's also, like I say, a very sisterly figure to the rest of the crew, and she's not afraid to put her foot down. When it comes to some of the crew, including Luffy, like I mentioned earlier. That she's not afraid to put her foot down, if you will, and put them into place. Like I think I mentioned earlier, there's several times that she trusts Luffy, she loves Luffy. There's no doubt. The BFFs, and if not more, according to a lot of fans, they can see that, even though Oda won't allow it to happen. There is this unique dynamic to where being BFFs, they can also get on each other's nerves. And one of the things she will do is, like I said, she'll put him in his place, even if she has to lock him in a cage temporarily to, teach him a lesson as part of a punishment. Like, hey, don't pull that crap again, and all that. So it's that kind of, it's that kind of stuff, if you will, that makes her relationship with Luffy very unique. But again, she has the same thing with the rest of the crew. You got Sanji, who's very woman obsessed with both him, Robin, and the other women crew. Some of the newer women members that come in, like I think what's one of them, Vivia, I think, and then Carrot, if you will. He's very obsessed with them, if you will. As strange as that sounds, or any woman that he finds attractive and everything, even though he's supposed to be dead serious, it's like that's his one weakness. But she'll put him in his place. She'll put Brooke, I think that's his name, in his place. She'll do the same with with Zoro and a few others. She's not afraid to stand her ground, and she's always been perceived as basically like, okay, if Luffy can't be in charge, of the ship, let's say he's resting, he's recovering from whatever he's done, and all that. Let's say he's down for the count for a little bit. She's the kind that she's basically looked at as like the second in command. She's looked at as a lot of fans have perceived her, and I don't know if it's been noted in the manga and the anime. Live chat, let me know. She's been looked at as, the potential queen of the pirates, if you will. Where Luffy is looked at as the potential king, she's looked at as the potential queen. Even though she has that cat burglar, background, I guess, as some people would say. But yeah, Nami is one of those characters that basically you do not, like again with Robin. One thing her and Robin have in common is you don't want to get on the bad side because you will get effed up. You will. I don't know if I mentioned this one here. I think I may have mentioned it in the second attempt at doing this. But Robin, when it comes to her devil fruit, it allows her to tap into the powers of having multiple limbs and all that, elastic-like limbs and everything. She can sprout them from anywhere, even on another person. She could do it and all that, you know. But also, if you push her way too far, she can not only create an avatar of her as a giantess, but she can go into a giantess form, I think herself, but as a demon. Now, I don't know if it's a major avatar version. I don't know if it is or not. But there is a clip where she takes on this one character. I think his name, the character she takes on is Manta or something. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, this Manta girl just pushes her too far to the point that she just taps into this, demonic furor, as she calls it, this demon form of hers that she has thanks to the devil fruit. And she literally just F's this girl, this spider girl up, if you will, this spider insect girl up, if you will. She basically breaks her back. She doesn't kill her. She breaks her back. And everything is what she does. That's what she does and everything. And it's like, don't push her too far or else you're going to get screwed. You're going to get screwed. And the same kind of goes with Nami, if you will. I mean, Nami has tapped into devil fruit a couple of times. There's one arc, or at least a few episodes, where she takes on this character. I don't know if this character's name is Honey or something like that. I don't know. But this character basically is able to eat a devil fruit, and it gives her the powers of bubble bath or bubbly suds, water, or whatever. And Nami's like, okay, well, if you could do that, I'll do that too. And I think she takes a bite of the devil fruit, and she uses this against the girls to create, different versions of herself, different, clones of herself, and all that to finally trap this girl. Like I said, trap this girl eventually, like in a bottle, to where essentially she keeps her trapped because, hey, you pushed it, you basically pushed her buttons too far. You messed with the wrong girl, right? Live chat, correct me if I'm wrong, if I got that out of order. Comment section, do the same thing. But there's also something she also has as well. She has the staff of Zeus. Now, what's interesting in her dynamic with Zeus is that she doesn't trust him at first, because he tried to kill her, but over time, from what I'm understanding, they did get trust won over to where now she just needs to call upon him to help to help her out. And boy, there are times from what I'm seeing through clips, from what people have said, and even recent clips of the recent arc, where her and Zeus just they just go right to town with the power. They really do. They just go right to town. There's even, I think, one of the more recent episodes where she just levels. She uses Zeus's full-on power to level this one enemy. This one enemy, if you will. And I don't know what his name is, who's part of the crew. He just looks back at her after what she's done, the destruction she caused, I guess inadvertently, by taking this one enemy out. You have this one guy, the one with the long nose, looking at her, going like, are you crazy? Do you realize what you just did and everything? And she's just, giggling a little bit, and I think saying something along the lines that it seemed appropriate at the time, or something along those lines, to where she's justifying, rightfully, I guess, that hey, she had to do it, or else, there would be no way to take this guy down, or at least stop him. So yeah, she is definitely someone now with this power to where basically, when she needs to call upon the Zeus cloud, and it is a living entity, by the way. It's kind of like her Pokemon, I guess. He will basically, at full, especially with the full power, he will f, he along with her will f anybody up, and she even rides on him too. There's even a clip out there where she's riding on him, and it looks like basically they've almost merged. So it's like her hair is floating like his cloud form, and it feels like parts of her hair are coming off like a cloud, but that's not the case. It's just designed that way. And I'm kind of surprised that they haven't even attempted to do something like that with her and Zeus. I mean, you look at AI nowadays, you can do that. You can say, oh, merge them together and see what happens. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that yet. You know, I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that yet and everything with those two. But you never know. We still got apparently a long ways to go because according to research outlets like Gemini and others, this final saga, it could go for as long as Oda, in his work, in his work rate will allow it to go, which could mean for another few years. Because one thing that does kind of correlate with that is there's a rumor going around that after, I think, the next few episodes, they're going to go into basically a seasonal mode that only has 3 episodes, per season. And when I hear that, unless it's somebody trying to troll, be, a jerk and everything, when I hear something like that, what I hear honestly, ladies and gentlemen, what I hear honestly is what I hear honestly is I think the plan, this is just me speculating, me looking at it from my point of view. My thought is that they're going to go that route, if there's any truth to it, that the way they're going to go is they're going to take all the episodes they would have initially released, kind of like, weekly, throughout those next few seasons, and, condense them, kind of condense them, if you will. Hold on for a second, guys. Hold on. Condense them, consolidate them, like into one package, to where it'll be like 1 week you'll get maybe 1 hour, hour and a half worth of episodes, presented as a movie, and then the following week you'll get the next one, and then the next one. So that could be like 12 episodes in the span of 3 weeks, but all condensed and consolidated into feature length like films, if you will. I could see that. I could see that to where you could have the next 12 episodes, or the 12 episodes for the following season presented that way, and then the same going forward for the season after that and after that, to where you could have 12, 24, and 36, and then you're done. I could see that. Again, I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong, but, based on what I'm thinking it could go, just by the fact that they're saying 3 episodes per season, then, to me, that's the only obvious, answer and solution I think they're going to be going with very soon. Again, just my opinion, speculative opinion, but that's how I see it. But Yeah, Nami and Robin, obviously, like I said, are going to be huge parts of that. And like I said, Robin's got her reunion with Samuel. I think that's the name, coming up this weekend. And then according to various groups, group outlets on Facebook and on social media, X.com, Nami, upcoming very soon, is going to have a huge part to play in this final arc. I don't know if that's going to be, very soon, because the way they're trying to work it, from what I've talked about before, I believe, is, they're trying to simultaneously release the manga, or at least a chapter of the manga, to coincide with the episode of the anime. So I don't know if what, people are talking about was Nami and her being, involved in a huge scenario real soon. I don't know if that's going to be coming up, within the next few weeks or something, or that's just something people are talking about right now, so it gets us ready, or gets viewers ready for that moment when it comes to the anime adaptation down the line. But yeah, these two have been very prolific members of the group. I know some people are wondering, curious. Okay, Robin's going to reunite with Samuel. Does that mean, this is going to be the last we see of Robin, because she might want to stay behind and everything? I don't know, honestly. I don't really know. I'm not much. I haven't really. I mean, I need a lot to catch up with when it comes to One Piece and everything, especially with the current manga and anime that are running simultaneously with each other. So I don't know yet. Let me know. Let anybody else know in the live chat, as well as in the comments. Exactly what we could be in store for, because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that. I don't think that's going to happen, because we've seen. I think One Piece has had a lot of reunions, between characters, but the characters have always remained as a team. So I could see Robin reuniting with them, but then also basically being like, okay, I got to go with my friends because we still got to do this. I think that could potentially. I think that might be what they do, because obviously Oda realizes, or should realize, that fans, longtime fans, are so accustomed to Robin being part of the crew, having her, leave the crew and remain with Samuel. It'll be like, yeah, you're basically breaking apart this team when you don't need to. So I think it's just going to be a reunion, emotional one, and it's going to, and I don't think it's going to lead to anything like her parting ways with the crew and all that. I think she's just going to continue on with them and all that, because again, this is a character, this is a character like Nami that went their separate ways, after the pre-time skip. After the pre-time skip, went their separate ways and came back together after the post-time skip. So I don't think they're going to do anything crazy here or anything like that. It's just probably going to be a good episode that's going to add to the series and everything going forward. And again, if you want to let us know about that, let us know in the live chat. If not in the comment section, that's up to you. But overall, though, like I said, these two have played significant parts in the anime and the manga, and have become basically iconic anime. And they've basically gone on to. I'm trying to find what word to say. They've basically gone on to be iconic female protagonists in recent modern anime history, to the point that even if you don't know much about One Piece, all you have to all you have to do is ask somebody, do you know who Nami is? Do you know who Nico Robin is? And people will automatically say, oh yeah, they're part of One Piece, they're part of the Straw Hat crew. And if that's all they know, then that's probably pretty much good, good from the, good there, if you will. But yeah, overall, great. The great characters and the development has really grown and everything, and all that. So and obviously there's just more to come. There's more to come. So anyway, though, guys, that's going to do it for this 154th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential, the 2-for-1 on both One Piece mainstays Robin and Nico Robin and Nami. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, in the comment section, as well as in the live chat if you haven't already. And again, correct me on anything I may have missed out on. Let me know what I may have skipped, because I know there's a lot of long-time fans out there that probably know a lot more than I do. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are, and until next time, I will talk to you all later. Do me a favor, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And click on the links in the description to find my content also outside of YouTube, and support me outside of YouTube as well. But guys, give me your thoughts on everything I've had to say here, and until next time, I am out.